I started thinking we should have some kind of diff algorithms for your background, so we see how the furnitures improve over
It's
time.
constantly changing, yeah. Hopefully all the stuff behind me is temporary, so yeah, definitely changing a lot each meeting.
Hello.
I just felt like that kid in school that walked into the wrong classroom because I just joined the wrong Zoom by accident.
Was it a different meeting?
No, no one was there. I was like, I can't be the first one here. I'm running late.
Maybe what is the group conversation? I think there's something at the same time right now.
There are definite times where you arrive on a Zoom call and you realize these are not the people you were expecting to be with. And then
It is worse. It is worse when it is actually recorded and you are like there, like only being recorded by yourself.
Yes, a lot of people do that though. Whenever I go and get the downloadings of things like the AMAs, it's surprisingly hard to find the actual one because there's usually about 10 recordings. You have to figure out which ones were people just dropping in on the Zoom up before the meeting. Awesome. So I think we're all here. So let us kick off. Henry, you have the first point on MTTP.
Yeah, so there are not really big changes to see on MTTP. What we noticed though is that we probably didn't set the blocker labels on incidents that we wanted to set manually for now, because there's no better way to track how long we are blocked by incidents, right? So we should go and look through the last few weeks maybe and see if there are any incidents that we are blocking deployments where we didn't set this label, so we can better track it. And we now also added at the top of the, like at point 1, the link to deployment blockers. This is the epic where we try to track blocking incidents, so to get a better overview of when we were blocked and for how long. This is currently manually taken still out of the labels. I wish there were a way to do this automatic, but you can't, for instance, search for labels for incidents, right? You go to incidents and then try to search for labels.
We can build it off Sisense. So I have a plan to actually automate this, but the bit at the moment, the gap at the moment is adding the labels. So I think that's the tricky thing, is how do we automate the assigning of a blocker time?
Yeah. I mean, the assigning of blocker time, this is, I think, really hard because this is totally manual, right? You need to, a human needs to decide when to unblock something, and this is not something that's just done by an automation normally.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is hard, but getting at least when you set the labels to extract this. I mean, if I could just search for this.
It doesn't take very long, right? I do it. It doesn't take me very long. I'm happy to continue doing that. It's just at the moment we're definitely missing the last few weeks because I don't think my guess is there's usually 3 a week is what I generally expect. Thanksgiving will be different, but I think we must be missing some.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could just go to incidents here and then search for labels, but there's nothing to search for, right? You can search for author and assign, but nothing else. This is really, I don't know how we ended up with this, but this is very incomplete for a feature.
Yeah, I think you'd have to use the API.
Yeah, probably.
So the way I find them quite easily is to search on the incident label and order by created date. And then because we always have the date in the title, they end up grouped by week. So it's really quick to scan through.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, probably at least today we have a 7-hour blocker already. We had this morning, which is resolved now. But we still didn't do the first Gpod deploy yet. That's still running, right, Skarbek? Yeah, so, but this should now go through. And for last week, I also remember that there at least one 7-hour blocker was there, which was marked, but we need to check if there have been even more. But yeah, this is something which we really should keep an eye on.
Should we consider, oh, sorry, Henry, I interrupt you.
No, I'm done.
Okay, so thank you. So should we consider doing something like having a blank label that say that we need to fill the blocker time and assign it by default when an issue hits, say, S2 level. So we know that blocked something because of the severity level, and then we pre-assign something like, I don't know, blockers to TBD, right? And then you search by blocker TBD, and then you know these are all the issues that were connected to incidents that still need the manual task of getting the numbers out of the log and figuring out for how long they block deployment.
I like this idea.
Could work sometimes, but not always, because often we lower the severity because of unblocking feature flags and deployments. Sometimes we start with a lower severity because we don't think it's a blocker, and then it turns out to be one. So it will help a little bit, but it will not be complete, right? So,
but do we change the severity manually, or we use chat-ops for changing severity?
No, we do this manually. I don't think there's a chat-ops way right now to do this.
No, because I was thinking if the triage thing, the one that scans through the issue, I don't know for how frequent the thing is, but if we can get into in between the changes, as long as it's at least S2 once, it can head it.
Yeah.
Or even easily, if it's a deployment starting and can't start because there is there is such thing, then the release tools can have the thing say, I wasn't able to deploy something here. So for sure, someone has to put the number because this actually affected a real deployment, not just hypothetically, but a real one.
Yeah,
so on the deployment blocker epic, there's a bit of a discussion on there around automating this. So do you want to maybe follow up on there, Henry, and see what we can do to improve this? So like, how can we get this away from being manual for now and see what we can replace? Yeah,
I will have a look. I think it will be hard, but maybe there's some improvements that we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's manual till we solve it. So there's your motivator.
Yeah, for sure. The motivation is there.
Awesome. Great. And then we've got a few announcements. Read through discussion. Myra, you have the first one.
Yep, thanks. So I wanted to explain how the Q&A is currently working. I am going to write all of this into our release documentation, but I thought it might be useful for you to also do a little demo. So I'm gonna share my screen if I recall how to share my screen. Share screen button, of course. Okay, so here we go. I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. Please scream if you don't. Okay, so here it is, a coordinated pipeline. This one is for 3 days ago. It has been completed, and there are a few differences from the old process. In this one, we have like a deployment to staging that has been completed, and as you can see, we have a new stage, the one that triggers Q&A on staging. The jobs that we care about are these three, like the full, the orchestrated, and the smoke ones, which are three different type of Q&A jobs that are triggered for staging. And in this case, for staging, the one that we absolutely care is the smoke one. This job triggers the smoke and reliable tests that absolutely cannot fail. If a test in this pipeline, this is actually a bridge pipeline, fails, well, we need to either investigate retry the job because it might be flaky. And if it continue failing, we need to engage with someone from quality. The other two, the full and the orchestrated one, I am not very clear what kind of test they execute, but these two are allowed to fail. And well, we can continue the deployment if these two fail. Okay, so this is for staging. And now for Canary, we have sort of the same setup. We have the deployment for Canary. And once this one succeeds, we execute also 3 types of Q&A. The full one, the smoke for Canary, and the smoke for main or production. And on this case, it's kind of similar to staging. The one that can absolutely not fail and the one that we need to continue with the coordinated pipeline is the smoke for Canary. These other two can also fail. So it is going to be kind of common that you see that the deployment is continuing. And for example, the full job is still executing because it takes around 60 minutes to complete. And the smoke ones take normally like 15 or 20 minutes to be executed. The differences with the old process is that if the smoke one fails, a Slack notification is going to be sent. I put an example on the doc. And then the other one is that on the deployer, the Q&A jobs were configured to be retried automatically, I think 3 times. In this case, they are not. One is that I am not sure that the retry CI configuration is compatible with bridge jobs. I think we still need to investigate that. But another one is that I'm not sure if it is necessary, because in this case, if let's say that Q&A smoke fails, well, we are going to open basically the pipeline, and well, we can retry the jobs right here if one of them fail instead of retrying the whole pipeline, which I think it is actually faster.
They are already retrying inside, if I remember. So we were kind of retrying something that was retrying as well, and we were wasting a lot of time before getting a notification that something went wrong. Right now, we get alerted earlier because it was retrying 3 times. Each one of those could retry 3 times as well, and you get notified only at the end.
Yep, exactly. Also, another fun fact that I discovered is that both smoke in staging and Canary are executed actually 2 hours, every 2 hours. And the full ones are executed every 12 hours. So just for you to know, the smoke ones normally takes, like 15 minutes, the full one like 16 minutes, like 1 hour, and I think that's it. So
I didn't realize the scheduled QA runs. That seems weird, especially for as often as we're deploying. Like, have those ever caught anything?
Do you mean the full ones, or which ones?
Yeah, the every 12 hours even, or like, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if I understand. I mean, I know that they execute the full Q&A test suite, whatever that means, and they actually, the report shows that a lot of them are failing constantly. So I think it is like a work in progress for Q&A.
I think they're kind of graduating stuff out of it.
Yeah, that's it.
There have been a few times where I'll report that QA failed on a deployment, and then whoever's the QA on call is like, oh yeah, I already know about this. We're preparing a quarantine because this started failing a few hours ago. So like, it is helpful to some extent, but I think for certain situations, it's still not quick enough, perhaps. But I do think it's helpful for QA.
Do you want to verbalize your question, Henry?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we need to run QA tests in our pipeline that are allowed to fail. I mean, if we have schedules for that, maybe just leave it there. But if we have QA tests and they can fail and we ignore if they fail, why do we need to run them?
They are building issues out of it, so they kind of tracking where something started failing. I think that this gives them some kind of point in time where they know that code is changing compared to is the test flaky? So given the same code base, is it failing or not failing just by the hour of the day when it's running? So I think this is the point. Give them some extra data point where it is more helpful.
I wonder
it's
though
not
if
delaying
they're in
us.
the wrong place, right? Like, so for me, it feels like what I think is strange is that I would love a visual so that actually we don't have to remember like these ones are allowed to fail and these ones are not allowed to fail. Is there a way of moving the ones that are allowed to fail into like a downstream pipeline? So like we trigger the pipeline, but all we care about is the trigger. And the actual, like, you know, like Henry says, like we don't care about the outcome of these tests, right?
Yes, that's what we are doing for the full ones. We just trigger the pipeline and just we let it run. We don't wait for it to continue with the coordinated pipeline.
And
for the
so
orchestrated ones,
does green mean that the trigger succeeded?
That the trigger succeeded and that the pipeline was succeeded, but we don't wait for it in order to continue. We just wait for the smoke ones.
Because I still like, you know, like the way we have things like Kate's workloads, and it's like, it's literally like a separate visual, you know, like, you know, that this thing started, but if you want to go into the individual jobs, you kind of click through to another pipeline. I wonder if there's some, like, would it be helpful to have something similar for the effectively downstream QA tests?
Yeah, probably. You might be able to see it when the Q&A is running, because you can see that, like, okay, the coordinated pipeline is moving on, and then the full Q&A pipeline is still running because it still has like the pause icon that the pipeline is like active. But I think Henry has a good point. These Q&A suites are executed on schedule. So I think honestly, for the purpose of auto deployment, we only need the smoke ones. I'm not sure if we actually need to run like the full and the orchestrated ones, because they are actually executed every 2 hours or every 12 hours. And another fun fact is that the Q&A jobs actually ignore the deploy version that we send them. They only use the deploy version to build the Q&A issue, but they use, they run Q&A by fetching the last SHA from the API, and they run the test based on that SHA instead of the deploy version that we use. So they might be actually running Q&A from another version if there is another deployment that is running like currently at the same time.
I think this is a feature that got added recently for speeding up quarantine tests. I think this might be the case, right? That you can, I'm not entirely sure, but I do remember that they say something that if you set something to be quarantined, they could run from the newest SHA without you having to repackage the thing if it's only a QA code. But maybe it's not that one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense for quality, but it doesn't make sense for us. So yeah, probably we can just simplify the quality jobs by just running the smoke one. It would simplify the coordinated pipeline.
Would you mind opening an issue, Myra, and actually getting quality to wade in? Because this is one where, as with all of the kind of mixed deployment stuff, that we kind of own the trigger, but we don't really own the risk around which tests go with the deployment. So we'll need to make sure quality is on board with that.
Yes, for sure.
Super.
Do we know what is a coordinated QA test?
For the mixed deployments, do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, Myra was mentioning that there's a full test that I am aware of what it's doing. There is a smoke test that I'm aware as well of what it's doing. But then there was this coordinated QA that is allowed to fail. Is this the new mixed deployment?
That's the new one. Yeah. So Zeph's building out that stuff. Yeah, okay. That's the new mixed.
So it's allowed to fail because it's still a work in progress.
Yeah,
but it's in the right place, so it's not supposed to be removed. That one is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, at some point that will become blocking. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is there a desire for the full suite to eventually pass all the time, and that maybe we'll block ourselves if the full suite were to fail?
I don't think so. Like, I think it's a bit of a test ground. Like, I don't think there's ever an expectation that everything will always be stable. They want to run them all and get as many, but I can't imagine a time where those tests will always be able to run reliably.
Should we question that at all?
about whether they should already be running or
Whether they should be stable.
I think it's fine. Like I would probably rather not. Well, they will always be changing, right? Because the code is changing and the tests are changing. I think probably what we want to find a way of doing is getting our health checks and automated stuff in place so that that becomes a better measure than tests. And then we can hopefully start skimming down the number of tests we have to run at every stage.
Well, tests are always helpful, though, at finding potential issues before we go to production and need to roll back, right? So, like, before we're able to look at metrics, QA is still a place where we could find problems. So I wonder if there's any tests inside that full suite that maybe we should be considering as a blocker for us moving forward.
This is the smoke test. So whatever is in the smoke test is supposed to be a blocker and it has to be stable. And when we talk about quarantining tests, we're talking about something in the smoke test that is misbehaving. So I think the team is, yeah, go ahead.
I guess I question what's the difference between our smoke tests and what's the difference between the full suite where we don't care about?
It's a kind of a curated list of tests. So smoke tests are curated and they are supposed to verify core features that they must be working no matter what, must be working. And oftentimes then they got quarantined because the test is broken or things like that. So, but at least is a subset and easier to think about them. So I think that they are kind of reviewing stuff and gradually moving stable tests into the smoke test, but I'm not sure of this, how this dynamics works in the QA team.
Yeah, I think they don't add tests directly to the smoke test list. So it gets added first to the full, then they let it run, check that it keeps passing stably, and then they add it to smoke.
Awesome. Thanks for going through that stuff, Myra. If anyone has more stuff, like let's go async for that, just in the interest of time. Ruben, you have the next discussion item.
I just wanted to get some opinions about some proposals. So for example, what do people think about making the deployments list page more useful for us? For example, allowing more sort options or adding a diff link with the previous deployment, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it will be super useful to also allow us to stop a running deployment through the UI, because there is no way for us like to stop a deployment. And this is actually a bug in the rollback. Well, not a bug in the rollback command, but the rollback command checks this page to see if there is a running deployment. If by any chance we have 2 or 3, because some of them are stale, it is going to say, oh, you cannot roll back because there is a running deployment, and running deployment is from 3 weeks ago, and we no longer care about that. So yeah, an option would be to actually mark one of these deployments as failed. That would be nice.
None of this is doable by the UI right now. So I think we are the only user of the API interface of that thing, and API interface was built by us on top of that, because that thing was designed around deploying with the CI configuration. When you say this is deploying an environment. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, it would be super useful.
Do you want to verbalize, go back?
It was the same complaint Myra just voiced. The fact that I saw Myra hop onto SQL, doing SQL queries was just like, what?
Yeah.
The other proposal is support for multi-project deployments. So like a deployment object that records a ref for like Gitly, GitLab, Elasticsearch, multiple projects.
Yeah, I think that would be super useful. Like, like, you know, something like when you configure like mirrors or something like that, where, you know, you have the option of actually saying this project is related to these other ones. Right? I have dependencies or something like that, which is optional to set up. But if you set it up, means that you get the deployment tracking info. That would be super helpful.
Yeah, I really like this idea. I think that what we are missing here is a good analogy, because the point is that everything in the code base either goes through a project or a group or a namespace some sort, and you need, what we're missing here is the container. So what contains the information that then relates to building this? So we kind of need, either we need a first class object that represent a multi-project project, yeah, terrible name. Or yeah, I mean, this is what we are arcing doing the release metadata thing, where we are just writing stuff in there so that we have commits, and in those files we have the information we need. But on top of that, we also can leverage the deployment tracking API of that project to find something that then can be linked to every single project. So, but I totally agree. But we first need a good story around how to represent a multi-project.
Could the deployments be related to a group? So it can record deployments of multiple projects within the group?
Not that I am aware of. The only thing that shows you more than one deployment is there is an overall view in your GitLab instance when you can say, show me deployments, and you can add projects to that. So it's kind of a view, and you can add as many projects as you want. I just challenge you to find gitlab.com, just writing GitLab in the search bar on that thing, because basically it gives you every single fork instead of the original one. But that's fuzzy search. Maybe it got fixed. When I tried it, was not really helped. And the other thing is that it shows only 3 deployments, and they select them, I think, based on the one that had the lowest. Either is something like production, or everything else sorted by when it got created. So basically we have different names for environments. So, and the limit is 3, so it's not useful for us.
Yet.
Yeah, in the current state.
Yeah, exactly. We should specify.
But still, it's a visualization help. It doesn't solve the problem Ruben was explaining, right? Because you can say this is a deployment, and then it goes down in every child project and mark every single component as deployed on that version. What the thing is doing is say, I'm interested in this 10 project, show me the deployment of those 10 projects together in this view. But still, you have
feature is this? I don't think I've heard of this before.
I'll show you in one.
Yeah, there's like a top level deployments dashboard, I think.
Yeah, exactly. If you go to, what is it? Menu, I think. I think it's menu.
Yeah, the top bar, if you go to menu and then environment.
No,
operation.
It's menu operation. It changed again. No, it's completely different now. So it shows you just one. And what is this?
No, that's CI. I think it's environment.
It's environment. Yeah, you're right.
But then, yeah, like Alessio said, adding a project, you type in GitLab, and it's like nothing you need.
Yes, this thing here. What is it? Yeah. So you see this thing here. It was from here, menu, environments. I just added those things here. But basically, yeah, these are the, for instance, staging graph, Canary, and release. Yeah, I don't really need those. I mean,
it'd be interesting to look up this endpoint in the logs and see if it's ever used, because I doubt it. I can't imagine anyone's useful.
You would see my username next to it, because as you can see, mine is configured. But yeah, basically this thing is.
Oh, is this per user? As in each person can configure?
Each one, yeah, you have your own, it's your own dashboard. But yeah, try to add GitLab here. I don't even remember how I did it.
Showing 20 of 1,500 projects. They'll find it eventually.
This might be more useful on, say, the ops instance, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then it would also be useful to share all this information with another user and not be user specific, because this is technically organization or project specific. So this is a little goofy in my mind.
And a little context around kind of related to what Robert has just shared there. So, you know, like one of our big sort of mission items is to start dog fooding more stuff. And not too many features arrive fully delivery spec'd, unfortunately. So what we're trying to do here is actually figure out like what proposals should we be going back to product managers with, where should we be asking for extensions or proposing new features, which we could help implement as well. So like that's kind of the a bit of the motivator behind this as well. Awesome. So I'm going to stop the recording.